Hey, Reverend Kim here from Marshfield UMC and the Streams MUMC YouTube channel. I want to talk to you about something that's going to start next Sunday, which is May 4th. We're going to do Bible study, a Bible study I wrote called Hebrew Bible Genesis. We're going to do it for 4 weeks, and we're going to do it live in person on YouTube. So if you would like to take the class, we will be posting the homework this week and the guide that you can download, but you're going to see a lot more posts popping up on YouTube because this Bible study is going on. You can take the class at your convenience at any time, but if you want to take it live, you can actually participate and ask questions. We have a designated question asker who will take online and in-person questions and be on camera. It's Ken Thompson from Ken Talks. And so if you have a question and you're in the room, he'll ask the question so you don't have to be on camera. If you're online on YouTube, you can ask the question live. We'll also be coming back later and answering questions for people that are taking the class, but you can do it live. It'll be 4 o'clock on Sunday afternoons, and it'll be May 4th, and then we skip the week of Mother's Day, and then we go 3 more weeks, and the last lesson will be just an online studio lesson that you can watch to kind of finish up on your own and discuss with others. Anyway, that's the news. We thought that might be a fun new way to try doing Bible studies. So we've got lots of people signed up for it. It's a lot of fun. And I hope you enjoyed today's service. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the streams.
After years of living in parsonages, those are the houses that come with the church. All right. My son's dad and I bought a home that was our very own.
Kind of brace yourself.
It was in Republic. It was brand new construction, and I got to do a lot of customization, make it the way I wanted it to look. There was a homeowners association. Oh. He is risen indeed. Okay. I won the Sacrilege Award this year, once again. So there was a homeowners association, and we had meetings, and it was snotty, and I was proud of it, right? I was proud of that home. But when my son turned 2, that home became my home and Jay's home alone. And it was a lot of home. It was an expensive home. And even though I owned it, I couldn't afford to maintain it. So I sold it. And my neighbors came over and told me I should be ashamed of the price I sold it. And then we looked for a home we could afford, and we ended up in a home in Southwest Springfield that was 40 years older, and it was a sad home. I mean, it had promise, but it was a sad home. And when the home was inspected, it was discovered that the septic tank, the whole septic system was kaput. And so the seller had to put in a brand new septic system. And I don't know if you know about Greene County laws, but you have to put the cleanest septic system in a Greene County house you can. And all of a sudden, she was going to make $25,000 less. And she was mad. And I said, that's okay, I just won't buy the house. And she said, I'll sue you. So, by the time I moved in, I had fulfilled my part of the contract, and I had purchased the home, but now it didn't have a yard, it had straw, very old straw. And I had a serious case of buyer's remorse. Grant, do you remember? Yeah. Grant would be like, quit kicking yourself. But I'm a strategist, so I make a list of projects that needed to be done, and I planned them all out to get the house to be something I wasn't ashamed to live in, right? Something my old neighbors could come to and they wouldn't say, oh. So one of the first things they had to do, unfortunately, was kill my front lawn so that I could get it ready to be hydro-seeded in the fall. And while I was killing my lawn, in a hazmat suit. The wind caught my spray, and it went into the neighbor's lawn, and it killed her lawn. I mean, just a 2x3 area, but I was horrified. So I went next door to introduce myself. And I explained to her what I had done, and she said, "Why do I care? I don't care about my lawn. I don't care about your lawn. You know what I care about? I care about the lady who used to live in that house. How dare you buy that house from her?" So, not only am I like ashamed that I've had to move into this house, I'm ashamed of kind of what the house looks like, and I'm trying to get it better, but now I'm ashamed that I own, don't layers and layers of shame. And I didn't want to tell her, I did want to tell her, I really tried hard not to buy this house. But I didn't, so I just said, well, I'm making it mine, I'm making some improvements to the house, and that seemed to really offend her. Why would you need to make changes to her house? I didn't understand, it was just awkward, so I avoided her all winter. And every time she parked her car outside and there was ice, I'd go over and I'd spray de-icer on her windshield as I'd run back home. Because I still wanted to be a good neighbor. I just didn't want her to see me, I guess. Until she had to when I went over and explained how I was going to fix her lawn. Now, before Jay was born, I decided that he ought to have a really good Bible storybook. Right? Pastor's kid. Gotta have the best Bible storybook. So I went on Amazon. This was back when I could shop at Amazon because I hadn't given enough for Lent. First thought this morning, he is risen indeed. Second thought, I can go back to Amazon. So I went on Amazon to research the options. Have you ever gotten lost in the Amazon reviews? The reviews are sometimes much better than the product. That is the case for children's Bible storybooks. Because people get so offended at the stories that are in there. Oh my gosh, I can't believe this book. It's telling terrible stories about King David. Did you know this storybook says that Moses killed a guy? That's not in the Bible. And then you can comment on the reviews. So then there are people like me going, have you read the Bible? Maybe you should read the book before you comment on the storybook. If you really read the Bible, you might be horrified. The real stories in the Bible are real stories of real people who act in real ways, real stupid ways, real smart ways, real good ways, real evil ways. And what we consider the heroes of the Bible may not be consistently heroic. And that's the big reason I fell in love with the study of God's Word. Not because there's hard stuff or rude stuff or shame-causing stuff in it, but because it's so rich that you can spend your whole life learning it and never get enough. Stories mean different things at different points in our lives. And the heroes of the Bible have some pretty less than spectacular moments. Noah saves all the animals, and then he plants a vineyard, and he makes wine, and he gets really drunk in his tent. Jacob and Esau is the story of so much weirdness. Moses killed a man, buried him in the desert. David took another man's wife for his own, and then caused the man's death. Solomon hedged his bets with God and maybe some of the other ones. Jesus was turned on by the crowd, not because he did wrong, but because he was not what they expected a Messiah to be. And there was a lot of shame in all of these stories. Noah was ashamed. Moses was ashamed. Adam and Eve back in the garden, remember, they figured out they were naked, and how did they feel? Ashamed. David was ashamed. Jesus was not ashamed. But his disciples were. There are passages in the Bible that we sometimes don't understand because our culture is so different from the culture of that day. You know, sometimes you read a story and people are ashamed and you're like, why? Why? Why are they ashamed? Because every culture has its own honor and shame dichotomy. Like, this is honorable, this is shameful. Changes over time, changes over place, and what shames us today is certainly not what shamed us 20 years ago. And it certainly isn't what shamed us back in exile. So when we read Leviticus, for example, a lot of people start the Bible, Genesis, right, Exodus, a little bit of the slide, they get to Leviticus and they're like, well, I'm done. Because Leviticus has a bunch of rules, and a lot of those rules don't make sense because we're missing the shame portion. You know, we don't see anything wrong with mixing our fibers, eating cheeseburgers. But back when it was written, mixing things that were too unalike or too much alike, that was shameful. I want us to pause for a moment on Easter morning and think about Jesus' entry into the world and exit from the world as a human being. We can see that God was doing something with honor and shame. Because in a world where there were such strict laws about marriage, engagement, and paternity, Jesus was born to an engaged teenage girl. That's not an Easter basket full of honor and glory in their day. And when he died, he didn't get taken up into heaven from a public gathering of his enemies that demonstrated the massive glory and favor of God. God's voice didn't boom down and say, "This is Jesus, he's my son. The disciples were right." No, he died publicly, but not in a way that was glorious and honorable. He was crucified. That's a death for political insurgents and the worst criminals, people who were dangerous, people who were considered beyond help. And although it's been normalized, the cross, I mean, look, we hang it in our churches. We're like, oh, glory, it's the cross. That did not play that way in Rome. That is a symbol of shame. If we were a disciple of Jesus early on Easter morning, we would have felt shame. Because the man we gave up our lives to follow died as a criminal. And in our reading today, our reading from Matthew, how many disciples are in the tomb? None. On Easter morning, we have to put ourselves back into that time, into that context, and realize that believing in the resurrection of Jesus Christ, believing he was the Messiah, believing that he was the Son of God, believing that this matters, that he matters, that means dealing with some human shame and our relationship to it. His life wasn't about human glory and human power and human winning. He wasn't the captain of the football team, right? It was about God's glory and God's power and God winning, and so it involved a lot of moments for Jesus and the disciples that people might have found shameful. But God turns that around in Jesus Christ. I mean, people thought the early Christians were ridiculous. They chased a guy who had no money and no status in the world. He had a Galilean accent. And then he was crucified as the worst type of criminal. And they kept following him. Why would you do that? How did they get from, hovering together and thinking it was all nonsense to building the church we have today? They had to overcome their shame. They realized that God overturned their shame in Jesus Christ. God made something shameful glorious. There was no shame in the empty tomb. It was empty. God did not make it easy on us as human beings to follow Jesus because we cling to shame. We wear it. We apply it. We carry it with us. We let it hold us back. We give it to others. You know, we judge who should have it and how much. And if we see somebody flying too high, we just weigh them down with a little shame. After all, that's how we kept ourselves in line. That's how our parents kept us in line. Just a little shame to knock you down a notch. We wear it. But to follow Jesus like the disciples do, we have to change what we value. We have to focus on the empty tomb. And to do that, we have to embrace his criminal death. We have to focus on the miraculous life, and we have to embrace that socially questionable birth. We have to embrace him turning over our tables, right? We have to let go of our tendency to embrace shame, to wear it, to be able to embrace him. This is a powerful, life-giving message for God. A life following Jesus is a life that is powered by love and not shame. In the first 9 months of living in Springfield, I was in a puddle. I was a puddle of shame. And I thought I could, I'm Gen X, I'll just work more. I worked all day long and got Jay in and out of preschool. And then when he went to bed, I put on not a real tool belt. I had like a basket. I wouldn't wear a belt like that. But I put on my metaphorical tool belt and went to work. I learned so much home maintenance. I had Grant to help me tear down walls and stuff. But I learned how to do all this stuff. For 9 months, I just worked all the time. And I kicked myself with every repair job. I would be painting inside my cabinet and cursing myself for buying that house. You fool. And now the neighbors hate you. You scraped the paint off the front door because there were 87 coats on it. And the neighbor came over and said that door was good enough for the last lady who lived here. And I just let them put that on me, and I put it on myself. And that spring, after living in the house, summer, fall, winter, that spring, I caught myself out in the yard looking at my house with tears in my eyes because I had a home. And my backyard, I'd worked in it enough that it looked like a park. My son said it was his favorite park to play in was our yard. And I realized that now that I had all these dead trees taken out and trees trimmed, that light was coming in over the house. The grass was starting to grow. And I realized I had been carrying that weight of shame from making that purchase for the same amount of time I had carried my son. I carried it for 9 months, and I didn't want to bring more shame into the world. The length of a pregnancy, I carried those ugly feelings. You know, I wasn't ashamed of the house, I was ashamed of me. And as I sat in the yard, I realized I'm a disciple of the risen Christ. The tomb was empty. The shame was gone. There was no room for shame in my life. I am absolutely, completely shameless. There's only room for love. So I went over to the neighbor's house. Shameless. I knocked on the front door. I said, "Hey, lady who hates me, I patched your yard. I'm going to water it, and I'm going to mow this half of your lawn because you're going to have to mow more often than you do. So I'll just do that for you because I'm going to be watering your lawn." And she said, "Will you stop? Will you stop fixing your lawn? Will you stop painting your door? Do you know how bad I feel? said, you want me to fix your door? I mean, she said, I come home from work, and I don't even, like, my kid is grown, I just go to bed. I watch TV and I go to bed. I make dinner, watch TV and go to bed. You're like outside at 11 o'clock installing lights. Do you know how proud I used to be in my house? And now I don't even let anybody into it. I haven't done anything to it for years, and I didn't realize that until you showed up. She said, I feel so ashamed. And I said, well, I'm United Methodist. We don't really do shame. But I spoke to her in love and understanding, and I told her what I've been feeling and what drove me to fix the house and the yard, and the feelings of shame I had about even buying the house. And I told her I felt ashamed because I felt like I'd lost that life. And I told her about all the work I'd done to make sure we just had somewhere decent to live. And the light came on in her eyes, and she said, would you like to come inside? And she showed me proudly everything that was wrong with her house. We had the nicest visit. We turned it completely upside down because what was in our way was shame, right? And we had to let go of the shame to even speak to each other. And that's kind of a light shame story. But what do our heavier shame stories look like, you know? And how do they affect how we deal with others? I'm ashamed, so shame on you. Jesus turned it all upside down, shame and honor. In his day and in ours, he showed us that God's kingdom does not work on our values, it works on God's values. Jesus died on the cross as a criminal for our sins, for our mistakes, for our future. Jesus took on our shame. Took our shame. And what did he give us back? Nothing. An empty tomb. So what should we do with our shame? We should let Jesus take it and give none of it back. Let's run with the women to the tomb and find it empty of everything that holds us back. Let's find life where we expected death. Life free, life eternal. Let's embrace it. Let's find those areas of shame in our lives. Let them go. And live the life Jesus won for us with his death and resurrection. That's a free life. A life fueled by love. A life unbroken by shame. Amen.